now we're kind of stepping into the past, but like with a Mega Evolution.
Yeah.
Because Scoville, and we've already seen already on the stream, but you know, it's older Pokemon that has gotten a Mega Evolution in Legends EA, but Steelix.
Yeah.
That is a Mega Evolution that has been around for a long time.
And it's been around for a long time, and it hasn't really been used at all in a lot of competitive environments. Wolfe showing up with this Mega Steelix team, it's really cool. There's a lot of cool stuff on that team that we'll get to see it in the team preview phase here. But we got another look at a team like Stevens earlier on in the day. It's going to be that same kind of baton pass Espathra setup team that I think has a lot of potential.
Espathra is one of those Pokemon that, again, like we have seen sort of, you know, here or there. It's been a fleeting moment in some of the regulations that we have had ever since it was introduced in Scarlet and Violet. But it really was, I think, most well known for the fact that you could get fast hypnoses with gravity, making those accurate.
Yeah.
But that's actually not something that's going to be on this team, and that's why I think the Espathra nowadays stands out as much as it does, because it's really here to do those combines, get the baton pass, but also, if you see a moment for it, those Lumina crashes hurt.
Yeah, they hurt initially, and also they lower special defense of the target by 2 as soon as it hits. So if you land one Lumina crash, the next one will be even more powerful. Stevens' team a little bit different from the one we saw earlier on in the day. I think ideally you're passing to Archelodon, whereas the one we saw earlier, I think there were 2 or 3 like pretty good targets. But right now you have the Archelodon with the Protect and Leftovers. It's got stamina. If you pass to the Archelodon, you're in a really good spot.
And then you also have Psych Up on the Sylveon that can actually copy the stat boosts from another Pokemon. So let's say you do that, Archelodon gets those, and then Sylveon's like, okay, I'll take those 2, thank you.
I think that's why you want to pass to the Archelodon. It gives you the option to have 2 Pokemon with those boosts instead of just the one, thanks to that Psych Up. But another look at Politoed as well. I don't know if we've seen a Pelipper on stream yet, which has typically been the more popular raid setter in this format, but this is at least our second Politoed.
Yeah, and this Politoed is going to have a Choice Scarf. So one of the things that we saw was a drawback of the Politoed on stream for Billy Brown is that it is a Pokemon that tends to be on the slower side of the speed spectrum. Yeah. But all of a sudden, you give it that Choice Scarf, it's going to be faster than a lot of the things in the format.
Yeah, a fast Icy Wind can be really important here. There's not a ton of speed control options available in this format, so something like that Icy Wind could slow down Wolfe's Pokemon enough to get that speed advantage.
Wolfe's team, though, there's a lot to break down here. Of course, that Mega Steelix is one of those Pokemon that sticks out, but you do have a second Mega Evolution in the Tyranitar. We have already seen just how powerful that Tyranitar can be, but this one has Dragon Dance. This is going to be a setup option here for the Tyranitar, and it doesn't stop there, Jake. There's also setup moves on the Talonflame. It has Swords Dance. That is a unique one for sure.
Definitely, and a +2 Swords Dance with that sharp beak is a really good way to get some very powerful Brave Birds. Of course, you do have Gale Wings for that one-time priority Brave Bird, but if Sand is up, you're going to lose that Brave Bird priority immediately unless you use it on your first turn out. So I think if you want to go for that Talonflame mode, you probably want to avoid the Tyranitar until you've used Brave Bird at least once.
This is going to mean that this Talonflame doesn't have Tailwind.
Yeah.
And that's where we look at the Sinistra for the speed control on this team. If you so choose, you do have Trick Room as an option for the Sinistra, and Steelix is one of the slower Pokemon. In its Mega Evolve form, it gets a huge boost to its physical defense, but as you notice there for a lot of Steven's team, it's mostly special attackers. So I wonder how much you're really going to be leaning on the Steelix in this case. Trick Room could still be very valuable. A lot of the Pokemon there for Steven's team are going to be kind of in like the middle portion of the speed, and then let's say that Espathra gets a speed boost, then you like to flip the speed order. If
Trick Room goes up, Steelix should be attacking first very consistently, so that is a pretty great option for Wolfe here too. Especially with that Sand Force ability, you can turn off the rain from Politoed and maybe boost up your Steelix a little more. But no Steelix just yet. We got this Sneasler and the Tyranitar facing off against the Espathra and Incineroar. Immediately Steven trying to look to get those Calm Minds and Baton Passes going.
Well, the Intimidate first is actually going to get rid of the White Herb from the Sneasler. So now it's all of a sudden going to be one of the fastest Pokemon on the field. It's going to be difficult for that Espathra to catch up unless it gets a couple of speed boosts.
It's probably going to need, I think, 3 to outspeed this Sneasler, so it might be a little while before it can do that. Thankfully for Espathra, the Sneasler doesn't threaten it too bad. Of course, you don't necessarily want to take a Dire Claw, but the more important thing to defend yourself against right now is certainly this Tyranitar.
You want to worry about the Lumina Crash, though. I think that's the one thing that would be Sneasler's biggest arch enemy as a poison and fighting type is going to be a super effective, extremely effective psychic type attack going on there. But you can only fake out one Pokemon. So I think that's the decision that Steven has to make. But of course, Sneasler has fake out too. So Espathra is actually going to be the one that flinches as Tyranitar just gets to go for the Rock Slide. Didn't Mega Evolve on this turn. Something that we've seen a lot of trainers try to hold onto just in case the opposing Weather Setter does come in. You can Mega Evolve and overwrite the weather that way. But yeah, what an unfortunate flinch onto the Incineroar.
You wanted one fake out and you got two instead. Pretty good first turn for Wolfe there. I think the fake out into Espathra is certainly correct there. If you do happen to get that Lumina Crash off into Sneasler, you are immediately knocking it out in one hit. The Incineroar not going for a fake out there, potentially trying to get some damage off with a Flare Blitz or even parting shot out. Give Steven a way to protect this Espathra a little bit more. Just unfortunately isn't able to because of that flinch. Now this Espathra is not looking too great. The Sneasler now is able to threaten even more with the Dire Claw. Based on how Espathra is trained, it might be able to survive it, but even if you survive, you probably can't Calm Mind. That Rock Slide chip damage also going a long way for Wolfe there.
I think you could also realistically go for something like a close combat into the Incineroar. Feels mostly safe. And in fact, it's going to be enough to pick up the knockout. If you lose your Sneasler here, I think you've basically gotten what you've wanted.
Yeah.
The Intimidator is gone. You get to bring in the, the Sinistra for free. You don't actually have something like the Flare Blitz that's going to be dealing with that anymore. So I think you take that. I'm expecting a knockoff to come this Espathra's way to finish it off and give Wolfe a one Pokemon advantage after losing the Sneasler.
This Culver Berry will reduce the damage, but will it be enough to survive after that chip? It does survive with 21 HP. It might be a couple turns of sand damage away from being knocked out, but surviving here is crucial. We saw it take 12 damage from that Sandstorm, so one more turn and it will be knocked out. But you do have the option to go for something like that Baton Pass. Pass those two speed boosts that you have gained from speed boost onto something else. But like you said, I think that was a great call. Just getting rid of that Incineroar immediately means that you don't have anything threatening your Steelix with Intimidate anymore. You take away a really good pivot option for Steven there too. So a smart targeting there by Wolfe. I think you're very willing to trade your Sneasler for that Incineroar.
I wonder if you actually end up Baton passing into something like the Sylveon.
Certainly could, yeah. I think it really depends on Steven's last two Pokemon. If it's Archaludon and Politoed, which I somewhat expect, you kind of have to bring in Politoed here because you'd much rather Baton Pass through the Archaludon.
But it's actually Archaludon. So you have to think about this too. There's only one Mega Evolution option on Steven's team, which would be that Scovillain.
True.
But did you actually bring it? Because I think it's actually reasonable to assume that maybe you didn't.
I think it's quite possible he didn't. Looking at Wolfe's team, it's not very hospitable to Scovillain. Like, maybe you want to try and get burns on either Tyranitar or Sneasler or even Steelix, but otherwise, the Scovillain doesn't really have a lot to be doing against Wolfe's team.
Well, it's going to be the Steelix that actually comes out for the Tyranitar, and we're going to see an immediate pivot there of the Archaludon to the Politoed. A great heads-up play for Wolfe to be able to preserve that Sandstream ability for later, as we actually do see the Espathra Baton Pass out now into the Archaludon. Yeah,
the Archaludon now is going to get those two speed boosts, but I fear that Steelix swapping in with Sinistra on the field means that Wolfe might have tried to set up Trick Room here, and if that's the case, it will be a case of this Archaludon speed boost being very disadvantageous.
Yeah, because at this point, I mean, you do have the stamina ability on this Archaludon, so you are going to be able to deal with, some of the physical attacks from the Steelix, but Steelix has a mighty big attack stat as a Mega Evolved Pokemon. I don't know how much you can actually deal with the Earth powers there.
Well, not to mention if the Tyranitar swaps in,
high horsepower.
Right, if the Tyranitar swaps in for the Sinistra and you Mega Evolve the Steelix, you get the Sand Force boost, which powers up your attacks even more. You get a lot of attack from Mega Evolving. There's not a whole lot that Steven can do to protect this Archaludon from taking a high horsepower.
Yeah, well, you called it. Tyranitar is here to stay, and Politoed is going to have to either stay or try to bring back the rain. The Steelix Mega Evolving looks quite fun. This is like where I think that maybe Terra kind of came in there, with the idea. Wow, their Archaludon does actually tank that high horsepower, but it's not going to be around for a whole lot longer. I think. Politoed goes for the Muddy Water, and so that is going to be one of the slower things on the field thanks to that Choice Scarf. Actually does take that Steelix down quite low, and the accuracy drop on the Tyranitar.
Ooh, great call from Steven. Just unfortunately not enough to take out that Tyranitar. Really good play there, going for that Flash Cannon into the Sinistra. Maybe you would have been tempted to go for Dragon Pulse, which I think is maybe slightly higher base power, but using Flash Cannon there covers the Tyranitar swap very well. If it had just a little bit more power behind it, it could have been able to knock out the Tyranitar and make this game maybe a little bit closer. But even with all that damage you got from the Muddy Water and Flash Cannon, Wolf's Pokemon will still be attacking first. The accuracy drop onto Tyranitar and not Steelix there, so Steelix can pretty freely go for another one of those high force powers. You do have to worry a little bit about this Politoed. You know, it got that Muddy Water off. That was a lot of damage into both of Wolf's Pokemon. And took none itself, so you kind of have to start focusing on it at some point.
I think you just want to Heavy Slam it, no?
Potentially? The Heavy Slam is resisted, right? So you got to go for a high horsepower.
Maybe you do have to high horsepower the Politoed. But I'm thinking here, like, you still have the speed disadvantage if you are Steven.
Yeah.
Our Chaladon got those speed boosts from the Espatra. Sinistra's going to come back in, and the Hospitality is actually going to heal a pretty considerable amount of damage, and also does put Wolf in a position where that Tyranitar can come back in at any moment. You're just hoping here that you're not going to take any damage, and the Wide Guard is perfect because you know the Muddy Water is coming.
Yeah.
So that's at least going to stop that for one turn while you get the Sinistra in for free.
Really, really good play by Wolf there. The Wide Guard will protect you from Muddy Water. The Politoed is again holding that Choice Scarf item, so it cannot use another attack. And since the sand is up, the Chaladon, well, I guess you can't Electroshot a Steelix anyway, but only having Dragon and Steel type moves, Steelix really doesn't care about what this Chaladon can throw at it right now, especially considering that healing from Hospitality. So by switching in Sinistra here, you give yourself a chance to threaten this Politoed Magigacha as well.
And you just have, you have Rage Powder, just because also our Chaladon's not going to be doing too much to you either. Our Chaladon does get a double protect though, so that's actually kind of a big deal to try to stall through some of these final turns of the Trick Room. But we do see that the Sinistra actually went for Magigacha, so that's going to be spread damage that's going to land into the Espatra as well. And that's going to finish it off, and that's going to bring in the Politoed for free.
Yeah, Politoed is forced to re-enter the field. We'll be able to set the rain back up, but because Wolf swapped out that Tyranitar, does have it still in the back to set up that sand once again. I think there's still at least one more turn of Trick Room for us, so the Steelix will still have the speed advantage. And because this Politoed is Choice Scarf, it might not be super bulky. There's a chance that this Sand Force boosted high horsepower might be enough to knock it out outright.
One more turn of Trick Room left, right, and then of course the rain just got set. But it's tough because do you really want to try to open yourself up?
Yeah, what do you do here? The Chaladon isn't threatening Steelix at all unless you get an Electroshot boost. But trying to go for Electroshot into Sinistra is very risky on this turn.
You can't KO
swaps
it.
The Tyranitar back in. You're locked into that charge up turn, and then you've wasted 2 turns of not damaging Steelix with your Chaladon. I think this Politoed is becoming more of a problem for Wolf, though, because if you let it go for something like a Muddy Water here, it might come very close to knocking out Steelix, even with the sand going back up.
It is close, but you should be able to get through one more. I think you can get through one more. A Chaladon tried to go for a triple protect, though. It's going to fail. So this time around, this Steelix not going to mess around. Has the high horsepower to get the knockout, but now you have to deal with this Politoed that Muddy Water, if it comes out, is going to knock out the Tyranitar from here, but it's in fact just the Weather Ball. So that's what you lock into, and that's just not going to get the job done.
Especially with that Rock-type Weather Ball into the double-resistant Steelix here. I think this is pretty wrapped up for Wolf. I think Steven very correctly not locking into Muddy Water there. In the case that our Chaladon does go down and Steelix does not get knocked out by Muddy Water, then you just get Wide Guarded to death and you just can't do damage for the rest of the game. So I think Steven did what he had to, but Wolf, knowing that, swapping in Tyranitar there made that a very safe end game.
Yeah, that's a great point. Since there is that Choice Scarf on the Politoed, you can't change the move. And with the additional Pokemon in the back, I think you end up getting that Magigacha. I think I would love to know how much Magigacha does from Sinistra into a Politoed single target.
I mean, I would guess it 2 KOs if the Politoed doesn't really have any training in its HP and special defense stats, but it's a tool that Wolf has that he didn't necessarily have to use in this game, so maybe concealing that could come in handy in the next couple of games.
Trick Room worked out great though, so I think it's on Steven to figure out ways to get through it. But it's tough because I think when you look at the moveset that this Steelix has, it's got high horsepower and heavy slam. Our Chaladon's weak to that. Sylveon is weak to the heavy slam. And Incineroar is weak to high horsepower. There's a lot of Pokemon on this team that just don't do well into it. But we didn't see Steven bring the Mega Scovillain.
We didn't see the Scovillain at all. I have to wonder if it will come. Again, it's kind of tough to bring into Wolfe's team, because even if you are able to get a burn onto something like Tyranitar or Sneasler, you have Talonflame that's immune to burns thanks to its fire typing. If Wolfe does opt to bring the Talonflame, it's a great answer into that Scovillain. Even if Talonflame doesn't come, you can get a lot of chip damage in the Scovillain with Sand. Something like Rock Slide from Tyranitar will do a great job into it. And it doesn't necessarily just want to sit on the field against Wolfe's team, because even with some burns throwing around, that Sand damage racks up, the Rock Slide damage racks up, the Sand Force boosted attacks from the Steelix rack up as well.
But it is going to be the Scovillain that makes an appearance. And I was going to say, the one caveat that I would say is you still have to give respect over to the Scovillain, no matter what. And you've got a lot of physical attackers on this team. So if you can't find a way to get a one-hit knockout into the Scovillain, that's 2 burned Pokemon on your side of the field. You can even protect the Espadra here, get a speed boost. The Unburden didn't activate on the Sneasler just yet, so that might actually give you a speed advantage into the Sneasler on the next turn. It's a fake out though, so that's also one way that you can kind of deal with this Espadra for now, is just fake it out and deal with it next time. But that's going to give room for this Tyranitar to go for a Dragon Dance, increasing its attack and speed.
Flamethrower immediately into that Tyranitar, maybe trying to get a little bit more chip damage into it. You fish for a burn on the Flamethrower, but not going to happen just yet. I think a great turn by Wolfe there, getting that Dragon Dance up, immediately saying, okay, I'm not going to lean on Trick Room just yet. I've got this Dragon Dance Tyranitar. Now it is threatening a lot more damage. It means if you do go for a Rock Slide with this Tyranitar, you are maybe knocking out the Scovillain outright, and if not knocking it out, you're coming very, very close. If you have to trade getting burned for almost knocking out the Scovillain, I think that's a trade that's worthwhile.
I still might have double protected on that first turn, because I think I would have liked to see if I get anything fun from the Moody boosts from the Scovillain.
Right.
Because sometimes we see that where you're like, oh, maybe I get a nice juicy special attack boost. And the speed drop like we saw earlier on stream from Mega Scovillain, and then you can Mega Evolve, and then the Spicy Extract is in play. But there's not going to be any Moody boost for this Scovillain. It's just going to kind of just be here as Espadra gets a free Calm Mind. Actually, I say that. Could just be a knockoff from the Tyranitar that's going to chunk it down quite low. But it's another Dragon Dance. So here's another way that you can get around the Spicy Extract from the Scovillain. You have to hit it at some point. But look at the, look at how well this Tyranitar is actually going to deal with something like the Giga Drain. You can have the +2 now, which will neutralize getting burned.
It will, yeah. And at +2, I think you are certainly one at killing this Scovillain with Rock Slide as well. So again, you're making sure you're trading getting burned by the Scovillain's ability for taking a knockout on the Scovillain, while also this Espadra getting a Calm Mind up means that if you are able to get a Baton Pass off, it is much more potent. The 2 speed boosts on Espadra matching the 2 boosts from Tyranitar's Dragon Dance mean it still will be acting first, but only having Lumina Crash, you can either try and get a knockout into the Sneasler with Lumina Crash. I don't know if you can take a +2 Rock Slide. You might have to use a Baton Pass now.
And the Espadra is still going to be faster than the Tyranitar here. It's going to protect itself for now because, and the Scovillain will too. So you're going to at least stave off the Rock Slide for 1 turn. But I'm curious to know what this Sneasler is actually going to end up doing here. It would have been a free close combat. You know, that's actually another thing that I really love about the Dragon Dance play. It's not even just about getting the +2 attack to try to neutralize the burn. You have +2 speed.
Yeah.
What an interesting interaction to see the Tyranitar move before the Sneasler, and there's no Trick Room.
And it means that if the Tyranitar does get that Rock Slide off, you knock out Scovillain, there's no chance your Sneasler gets burned by that Scovillain redirecting its attack. And I love that Wolfe did go for the close combat there. If Sneasler gets to attack on this turn, it's because Espadra went for Baton Pass. And if the Baton passes, it's probably into Archaladon. If you close combat the Archaladon on the swap, you've gained so much more ground than if you happen to maybe catch the, try to Dire Claw and it go into the Archaladon instead. So it's really smart play here. The Unburden not being active, Wolfe is very aware of that and knows that this Tyranitar can protect Sneasler from getting burned.
I wonder, though, if you actually end up switching in the Sinistra here at any point. Because if you're expecting Baton Pass to come through, then I would say maybe you can prepare for Sinistra to come in and actually go for Trick Room. But we're not actually going to see a swap. So maybe this time it will just be a Rock Slide to finish off the Scovillain and then the close combat here. Spatro did have a point or a moment to be able to go for the, the Lumina Crash, but that Scovillain is out of here. Chaladon unfortunately has to take a stamina boost, so I actually do wonder whether or not the Sneasler can pick up the knockout. But this was a worthwhile trade to take the burn for your Dragon Dance attack boosts.
They could probably survive. Yeah, with that stamina boost, you're able to hang on. But that's still really, really important damage here. This Archaludon now has a lot of speed boosts. It has the special attack boost, it has the special defense boost. But more importantly now, it's at +2 defense. It's got the leftovers. Now is when this Archaludon can attempt to start taking over this game. If you didn't get the close combat off into Archaludon there, that would have been very, very difficult to take down. The Wolf correctly identifying, like, I cannot let this Archaludon in close range.
Yeah, but I think the Sneasler, now that the Unburden is active, is faster than the Archaludon at +2.
Ooh, is it 2 or this Spatro might have gotten 3
it's 3. It's 3 speed boosts. You're right, actually.
So they got Archaludon might have the advantage over Sneasler. It might be pretty close.
Ooh, that is close.
But this Tyranitar is burned now. You got the Spicy Spray to burn the Tyranitar. But at +2 attack, might still be able to KO this Espathra with knockoff through that Pulver Berry because you did get those boosts with Dragon Dance. So still not a great spot for Steven to be in, but this Archaludon is your way back into this game.
But you probably need, like, okay, so you're threatening Flash Cannon or Dragon Pulse if you want to get damage off immediately.
Yeah.
Or you have to switch in your Politoed to get the rain up.
Right.
Sand is about to expire. There's only 1 turn of Sand left, so you could also kind of wait it out and see what's going to happen after this turn. But this Archaludon actually ends up protecting itself. That's going to allow this Tyranitar to just go for knockoff here. Now, knockoff doesn't happen before the Culver Berry activates. But that is a crazy survival from this Espathra.
Yeah.
It's going to be able to get the Luna Crash off into the Sneasler and bring in something new. But when the sand is going, so the sand is expiring, there's not going to be any sand chip to actually deal any extra damage to this Espathra since it's expired on this turn.
That's a huge survival for that Espathra. Getting rid of Sneasler means that close combat is no longer in play for Wolf. This Archaludon now is looking a lot better than it was about 30 seconds ago when the Sneasler was still threatening those close combats. Sinistra comes in, we'll be able to protect that Tyranitar with Rage Powder and also heal it back up with that Hospitality. Now you do have the option to go for that Trick Room. A combination of attacks from these 2 Pokemon I think is maybe not enough. The Espathra having only 1 speed boost here means that it's not going to outspeed Archaludon. So if the Espathra was faster, you could go for a combination Lumina Crash and Dragon Pulse, which with the -2 deep special defense might be enough to prevent a Trick Room here. But because that Archaludon now is at +3 and Espathra's only at +1, you would probably need to wait a couple turns. I don't know if you can afford that.
Yeah, you're right, because you would really want the Espathra to be faster than your Archaludon. Yeah. And if you wait, then that Trick Room's going up, whether you like it or not.
Right. So. And especially if it's that Steelix in the back, I think that's not going to be great for it.
It's going to be protective, the Sinistra, though, so maybe hoping to get a bit more mileage out of the Tyranitar, and I think Wolf might have got it, because Tyranitar just gets to 1 more knockoff into this Archaludon. It's going to actually get rid of the leftovers, and that's kind of the biggest arch enemy of some of these teams.
Yeah.
Getting rid of that leftovers that's going to constantly be healing you back up.
That is really important. Now this leftovers are gone, the Archaludon, any damage it takes will stick for the rest of the match. There's no other way to heal it on Steven's team. So now, even though it's getting more stamina boost, I think it's at +2 defense now, any damage it takes will be contributing to it being knocked out. It's actually +3 defense, so not going to take too much from those physical attacks, but a high horsepower from Steelix might still be able to knock it out, depending on what Wolf's last Pokemon is. I would assume it's that Steelix again. So I have to imagine your goal might be to set up Trick Room here and then just hope Steelix can close it out.
Yeah, I think that's a great call, but you have to find a way to actually get rid of the, I was going to say the Espathra. Steelix is just going to come in.
Yeah.
I don't hate that. I mean, it's going to be a Dragon Pulse first year. Archaludon is still faster than the Espathra, and then the Lumina Crash will follow it up if you were expecting there to be a double. So now the Steelix is going to be at -2 special defense. It cannot afford to take another attack, but I mean, this Tyranitar just has other plans. If it can connect onto both, and it doesn't, the Espathra is going to avoid the rock slide. This Archaludon is going to take negligible damage from that.
Well, now Steven, I think, is back in the driver's seat. This Espathra, I think, should be outspeeding the Archaludon after this turn, which means that now you've unlocked the ability to go for that combination Lumina Crash and attack from Archaludon. Even the Steelix, it took a lot of damage on the swap. Potentially, the next Lumina Crash might be enough.
Might be enough, yeah.
It might. Forget if it gains special defense when Mega Evolving. It might get a little bit, but that Steelix is dangerously close to being knocked out here. And this Tyranitar, while at +2 is still burned, I don't think it's going to be able to knock out this Archaludon on its own.
Sinister can come back in. It's going to give a bit of HP recovery over to the Steelix, but I still don't think that that's going to be enough to get it out of dodge.
Yeah.
Steelix is still going to Mega Evolve here because you may as well use it. Tyranitar a little too low, and the burn definitely hurting its a damage output at this point. But Espathra goes for the Lumina Crash into the Sinistra. So maybe the Steelix is able to get through this turn. Archaludon to follow up with a Dragon Pulse here is going to knock out the Sinistra, but I wonder if this is actually an opening for Wolfe to get back into this game. Maybe expecting there to be a Protect, but the high horsepower, even at +4 defense from those stamina boosts, is going to knock out this Archaludon, and it will just be the final 2 Pokemon here.
That was a really great play from Steven. You went for the Lumina Crash into a Tyranitar, which is often something you probably shouldn't be doing, but wanting to cover that Sinistra swap very, very well. Gets Wolfe down to his final 2 Pokemon alongside Steven. What is it going to be? It's probably the Politoed again, if I had to guess. And there it is. Based on these speed interactions, we should have Sand up at the end of the beginning of the turn. And we do have Muddy Water, which would be very threatening, but again, Steelix does have that Wide Guard.
Yeah, you could Wide Guard here, but I think you still have to worry a little bit about the fact that you did take a -2 to your special defense from an earlier Lumina Crash.
Yeah.
You don't have the speed advantage if you're the Steelix, but can you survive a double up of like Ice Beam and Lumina Crash? Because I don't think so.
It would be tough. Also of note, the Sand being back up means that this Espathra only has 2 turns left on the field. We saw it take 12 damage from the Sandstorm in game number 1. It'll go down to 3 HP remaining at the end of this turn, and then be knocked out afterwards. I think Wolfe, presumably going for a double Protect here, makes a lot of sense. And see what the Politoed locks itself into. If it is that Muddy Water, you have Wide Guard to try and close out this game. If it is the Rock-type Weather Ball again, it might be very difficult to make headway here.
It is going to be the Ice Beam. So now you know that there are going to be single target attacks. That chip damage is just not quite enough to actually get the knockout onto this Espathra, but you bought yourself, I think, time. You can only knock out one of these Pokemon.
Yeah.
And you gotta pick wisely.
But in return, can you knock out the Politoed? Like, if you go for Lumina Crash, or can Wolfe knock out Politoed? If Steven goes for Lumina Crash and Ice Beam into Steelix, that should be enough for a knockout. And then even though this Tyranitar will have that special defense boost, probably isn't enough.
And you didn't get the double Protect here, so it's just going to be a Lumina Crash to drop this Steelix's special defenses to -4. And this Politoed should have no trouble being able to pick it off at the end of this turn. Ice Beam comes out. Steelix is going to take that and go down. And we've tied up this series, it feels like. Bar a critical hit from this Tyranitar, but it goes for the Dragon Dance. Okay, so it's going to get a speed boost and an attack boost here. But is it actually enough to knock out this Politoed?
It might be really close. The special defense boost here from the Tyranitar in the Sand, I don't know if it's going to be enough, even if this first Ice Beam doesn't knock it out.
Same type attack bonus, Ice Beam. Yeah, you still have burn damage at the end of this turn.
And you're still burned, so you're at +1 attack, but you're not hitting at full power, because even though you're +1, you're still not doing max damage.
Well, Politoed still moves first, and it just barely doesn't get the knockout on the Tyranitar, so there's one chance this knockoff has to come out and deal the finishing blow, and it can't. So Tyranitar will knock itself out at the end of this turn from its burn damage, and we're going to a game 3.
What an exciting turnaround from Steven there. It looked like Wolfe was in the driver's seat after that couple Dragon Dances early on. Get the Scovillain knocked out, get a lot of damage on Archaludon on the switch, but Steven played that really, really well, maximizing the use of that Espathra after the Calm Mind and Baton Pass, comes back in, gets those crucial Lumina Crashes into the Steelix to set it up for a KO.
Oh my gosh, that game went so long, I forgot there was a Calm Mind boost.
Yeah.
Also on Metter Chaladon.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so you don't even need the Electro Shot there. Like, you just have the kind of 1-2 punch of that Lumina Crash and whatever attack that this Chaladon wanted to dish out. Of course, this game looks differently if the Rock Slide connects onto the Espadra on that one turn where Espadra only had like a sliver of HP left. Because then I think the Steelix does get through this game. It doesn't take the damage here from the first Lumina Crash to drop its special defenses. And then, of course, it's not at -4 if it takes another one.
It's really interesting back and forth there. I think Wolfe played that early game very well, and then just kind of got caught up by that Espathra doing a lot more than you might expect it to after it's already gotten that Calm Mind baton pass off. So maybe knocking out the Espathra could become more of a priority for Wolfe going forward, even after it's been able to get that baton pass off, proving that it is still very useful.
That Scovillain did put a little bit of a damper on things. Having it at the very beginning of the game, tough because it kind of forced Wolfe into a position where he had to Dragon Dance twice to feel like he was confident to be able to get through that and be okay with the burn that happened.
Right.
But I kind of wonder if you almost took too much time. Would you have actually rather you throw out the Rock Slide and even take the... No, you probably don't want the burn on the Sneasler.
You could have knocked it out immediately if you go for something like Dire Claw plus Rock Slide, but then you get 2 burns on your 2 physical attackers instead of just the Tyranitar. And I think that close combat into our Chaladon is very important, so dodging that burn is a great way to set up that our Chaladon to get knocked out. But we don't see the Scovillain just yet. We're back to the Incineroar, which will immediately give Sneasler that White Herb Unburdened speed boost.
Could still go for a fake out into either of these Pokemon. I feel like the first game we ended up seeing the fake out into the Espathra, and then Incineroar did just try to go for something probably like a parting shot.
Right.
But did get flinched from the Rock Slide, so I wonder if you switch that up at all, if you expect that Incineroar is going to try to fake you out too.
It's tough. I think you kind of have to fake out the Espathra here, because if you don't, you are just giving up your Sneasler to a Lumina Crash most likely. And with the Intimidate and the Tyranitar and the Colbur Berry on the Espathra, there's no way you're knocking it out with that knockoff. Even with a critical hit, you're probably not taking it out because of that berry. So I think you might need to preserve that Sneasler a little bit. Either swap it out or go for the fake out into that Espathra.
Well, it's going to be a switch out of the Tyranitar immediately as Steelix takes its place. As fake out once again finds its mark into the Espathra to stop it on this turn. And it's going to be the Steelix that takes the fake out this time. And so it's just kind of a, rotating door fake outs. You get a fake out, and you get a fake out, and you get some Sandstorm damage.
I love the Steelix like turning to the Incineroar, just staring down at it. Like,
yeah, it's like, you're gonna do what?
And what? No, I mean, I think a much better position for Wolfe here. This Steelix is so bulky, especially once it Mega Evolves. It has a sky-high defense stat. This Incineroar is threatening with a Flare Blitz, but I think if you Flare Blitz it, you're taking a lot of recoil and maybe even being knocked out by high horsepower. So you gotta be very careful what you do with this Incineroar here.
I think high horsepower feels safe into any of these Pokemon, especially because if you try to bring in something like the Chaladon, that's not going to feel great, even with the baton passes there. The Sneasler goes for the close combat into the Incineroar. That's just a one-hit knockout. Wow. That is the power of the Sneasler with the White Herb is able to cleanse that Intimidate drop, and you're still doing super effective damage. So Steelix doesn't even get a chance to have some fun in this round.
That's exactly why the White Herb has become the de facto item on this Sneasler. It is really good into Incineroar because Incineroar can survive a close combat if Sneasler is at -1. But if you just have the one Intimidate down on Sneasler, that White Herb will protect you, and you get the full powered close combat. And now Steven is down to just 3 Pokemon immediately. This Espathra really wants to get that Calm Mind up before it can go for the baton pass, but because you've already lost that Incineroar, the Steelix is at full power and is not necessarily being heavily threatened either by that Espathra.
Well, you also can only have 1 Pokemon left in the back. I was going to say, what is there? You usually would have our Chaladon and Politoed.
Right.
But you don't. You can only have 1 of them. What if it's a Sylveon in the back? Who knows? But
it's possible. I would assume it's still the Archaladon. It's pretty strong into Wolfe's team if you do get those boosts going, but you have to deal with the Steelix. Wolfe does not want that Steelix to get hit by a flamethrower from this Scovillain, so he's opting to swap it out into Tyranitar immediately.
And Steelers gonna go for Dire Claw. I mean, that's one way that you can keep this Scovillain in check. You know that you're likely going to be falling to a Lumina Crash on the receiving end. Or if it ends up being the Tyranitar, that is all of a sudden immune to the Lumina Crash. Scovillain gets to go for the flamethrower as well. Would have loved to be able to land that into the Mega Steelix that has those deep, you know, well, I was gonna say just not as nice, I guess, physical defenses here.
Yeah.
But you have this spot throw that should, I think, be faster than the Sneasler now. It's at +3.
Yeah, so at +3, it should be outspeeding this Unburdened Sneasler, which does give you the option to go for that Lumina Crash and knock it out before it can attack. If you do that, the Scovillain can potentially get a burn on this Tyranitar. But if you're going for the Lumina Crash on this turn, that's another turn you're spending not Calm Minding. Scovillain is very, very low on HP. Any attack from Tyranitar could knock it out. If you lose Scovillain this turn without going for Baton Pass, you have nothing left to pass to.
Wow. Well, it is just going to be the Dark Claw. It's actually faster still than this Espatra. And it's going to be the Lumina Crash to take out this Sneasler. But if this is a Rock Slide to follow up, double connecting into both Pokemon would be pretty good for the game. Tyranitar is not going to miss this time around. Barely misses the KO on the Espatra again.
Yeah.
And this Tyranitar is going to get burned in the process.
But I think you're very fine with that. You've brought Steven down to his final 2 Pokemon. This Espatra is on the field. We'll be taking sand damage here, and one more turn of sand will knock it out. Importantly, you cannot Baton Pass anymore. You've lost 2 Pokemon. There's nothing left in the back to pass to. So whatever Steven brings out here will be his final Pokemon, and this Espatra has accomplished essentially nothing after getting that Lumina Crash off into Sneasler.
And look, there's no Politoed, so there's no way to be able to take the sand away from the Steelix that is waiting in the wings. As soon as it comes back in to give this Tyranitar a much-needed drink of matcha, you can double protect here. Espatra knocks itself out.
I think the last turn of Sandstorm, so I want to say if it is the final turn, it's not actually going to be knocked out here. But I think you're fine with that, right? Like, you're also not doing too much to Tyranitar, especially because it has that Sinistra next to it to protect it with Rage Powder. If you're able to get something like a knockoff off into our Chaladon, then all of your damage starts to stick again, despite that stamina.
Oh, well, I guess maybe hoping for a Rage Powder there, or even just something else to switch in. But it isn't going to. So there's no Lumina Crash damage onto the Tyranitar, or what Steven was hoping for. And thus our Chaladon has been left on its lonesome. 3 Pokemon left here for Wolfe to take it down, but you've got to be methodical. Don't want to give over too many stamina boosts to this Pokemon, but you know Steelix is going to be close to finishing up the job. One way to make sure that you've got the speed in your favor is going to be setting up the Trick Room so Steelix can come in and finish the game. I
think this is still a very, very strong position for Wolfe. You do have to be a little bit careful about this Archaladon and its stamina. You can afford to attack it once or twice before you get that high horsepower off. I think crucially, you really want to get that knockoff into the Archaladon, get rid of that leftovers, make sure it's not recovering anything. But instead, Wolfe is opting to swap out Tyranitar, wants to make sure he gets that full-powered high horsepower in the sand before any stamina boost can come through.
I think that's fine.
I do too.
We did see that it was close to being able to pick up the knockout, but just not quite enough.
Yeah.
But then, too, you're fine.
Yeah. I mean, especially this Archaladon, again, doesn't have a special attack boost. It really can't damage this Steelix at all. You can get a high horsepower off here, give it a stamina boost, even with some leftovers recovery. It's going to be in range for another one. And importantly, Archaladon just won't threaten Steelix at all in return.
Can we take a moment before this game ends to appreciate the size difference between the Mega Steelix and Tyranitar the Teeny?
That's so great. Oh, I love it.
It's beautiful.
We are going to get this Stand Force boosted high horsepower into the 0 defense boost Archaladon on these coming turns, which will be really important for Wolfe here. After that high horsepower comes through, you can follow up with a knockoff. If not knock it out, you just get it immediately.
Okay, well, that's one way to do it. Your Chaladon is down, and Wolfe Glick undefeated for day 1 of the Indianapolis Regional Championships.
Really impressive run. I think Mega Steelix was on a grand total of 1 people's radar going into this event, and it was Wolfe's. But showing us that Mega Steelix, even though it hasn't been very popular, wasn't even very popular the first time around, we had Mega Evolution, is a big threat in this MA.